Right. And we are live. Okay, welcome everybody to Tuesdays at 8 on what is today? It's 28th of May, 28th of May, 2024. And we're gonna kick it off starting with Keith. Tell us what's up, what is happening, and welcome everybody. Welcome. It's great to see Milton back in the fold. Yay! Hold Rose, Jenny, and anyone who's watching the replay. So welcome. So Keith, over to you.
Yes, thank you, and welcome everyone. Uh, Gretchen, while I'm getting ready here, I'm ready to start, but I want you to pull up the slideshow from the Sun Show, the last one that we did. Don't share it yet, just have it ready to go. Because Milton's here, so when Milton's here, and since Holder just had a show on this, we'll talk a little bit about Mars, but I want to talk about something else first. While we have Milton here, we've got to talk Mars, and Holders just did a Mars show. So if you have been with us virtually and watched our episode 3 on the Sun Show, we had a mascot. We had the pigeon. So this is kind of my mascot for the week. It's not a pigeon. This was a daytime image that somebody took with the telescope of a dove and her young. So, we talk a lot about telescopes and night use, but they make fantastic additions to your camera. So I'm just looking at this and look at the detail on the feathers and the heads, and what a good mother. Look at this.
Wow.
This is crazy. Just such a beautiful detail. And we talk about chromatic aberration. That's that purple halo around the moon and bright stars. You usually don't have chromatic aberration during the daytime unless you're looking at like bricks and mortar, which I have a church up the street, and that's what I use to focus a lot of stuff on and test optics. But this is just, to me, just great.
What is this take? What is this from?
This is from Astromart has a picture of the day, and they're always looking for pictures. In fact, they're running out of material. But this is a bird shot. So a lot of amateur telescopes also do birding during the day, and this is what this person does. And this is a picture that they took. I just thought it was great.
I love
Beautiful,
it.
yeah, beautiful detail and kind of a nice, touching scene. So since we had the pigeon in the sun show that we did, I figured we'd start with the dove. I was happy to see the dove.
Me
All right.
too.
So we're going to talk about the moon first. This is not letting me advance. Okay. Problem right off the bat. Let's make that go away.
Well, speaking of the moon, so I've been going out to this preserve and been getting some great moon shots, right? And I swear the moon is like following me. It's like every day I go, like I went the other day to get the sunrise and I'm like, oh, the moon. And I ended up the moon. And this morning I went out and I was walking out to my car and I was like, oh, the moon. So I had to stop and take a picture. And then I get to the preserve and there's the moon again. And I'm like, it's following me. And truly, I know it's not, but it's just been like so apparent in the sky lately. It's been awesome.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
wider
so
open the spaces, the more it looks like the moon's following you.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's beautiful right now.
well,
Really
this
gorgeous.
this is the moon that has been following you. This was a picture that Gretchen shared on I don't know if I guess it was Lunar Chat of
Yeah.
with the sea star. So again, it shows what the little sea star can do, but it also helps me, and a lot of people are using the sea star for this, of what they can do with a bigger rig. So when I looked at this, I noticed something right immediately. And I think it's just because of how my mind works with the moon. I'm always looking for that hidden 9% of the moon that we don't always see because of favorable libration. And we're going to talk about that today. That's my moon topic. I saw something immediately, and it's this section down here. And the next one I had it circled. This is Mare Australe. This is one of those hidden features on the eastern limb of the moon that we don't always see. Not only do we not always see it, we don't usually see it like this. Usually you'll see part of it, it'll be like a dent, but I've never seen this feature, this ocean, this sea on the moon, where it's completely separated from the limb. So libration, when Gretchen took this picture, was such so that we saw the entire thing here. Usually you'll see a dark spot or a dent, and that's a good clue. When you look for these features on the limbs, you'll see a dent. You usually don't see the whole thing. So I was very, very surprised to see this entire region here. And there was some lively discussion about this um, in Lunar Chat. So since I did that, I figured I'd go back and look at my other librational features that we usually see. Australia, again, is still there. And I used a red lettering here, but you can see it. So there are markers that you look for. And when you see these markers further away from the limb, that tells you that it's time to start looking for those features that sometimes are hidden. So the marker in the north here is Endymion. This is Mare Imbrium. So you have Plato, that dark crater. Endymion is the dark crater sort of on the top, either 12 or 1 or 2 o'clock, depending on where the moon is. Uh, and the feature here, the C, is Mare Humboldtianum. It looks like a crater. It isn't. It's another mare. Endymion is an impact crater, so it's not really a mare, but this is Mare Humboldtianum. And then we have this feature, again, one of my markers on the limb, Mare Crisium. So if Mare Crisium is on the limb, we're not going to see much of anything. In fact, you're not going to see anything. But when it's this far in, then I start looking for this spot, Mare Marginis, which is the C on the margin, right? Mare Marginis on the limb. Again, not real great. We'll get better definition, hopefully, on Slooh for those people that were following this thread. But it is there if you know what to look for. And if you notice, the dent, there is a dent in the moon. You can see it. It's visible. It's not real obvious, but there is a little bit of a dip, and that's from this basin of the sea. You definitely see it here. Mare Smithii. Again, the moon is not totally round because we have this feature on the limb. We've got Mare Smithii. I know, is that a stretch of the imagination? No, it's there.
I
We're
can see it. I see it.
we're limited by the resolution of the camera. The Sea Star has a 2 megapixel camera. Sorry, my throat's going.
Yeah, but I can see it. It's just barely there.
It's there. I received a comment. Kind of hard to see. I don't know. I see it too. Hey, it was there enough for me to label. And what do we have here? These are the regions in question. So this is the crater Endymion. This is Mare Humboldtianum on the top. This is Mare Crisium. This is Mare Marginis. A little bit below is Mare Smithii. And Australia is down here. So if you remember that darkened sort of backward sea, that was what we saw in that first picture. Whoops, that I shared. The other picture is from that was here, that was Australia. And this image I got from a lunar reconnaissance orbiter video that I took stills of. And you can see it was a video because I didn't make the video line go away. But I thought just really, really great stuff and some other things on the backside of the moon that we don't see. But these things on the limb, we can see depending on how the moon is facing with libration. So before I look at the western limb, maybe let's talk about libration. Let me get my libration slides. Any questions on this before we take a look at these slides? I know I talk about this all the time, but I think I don't know, it's fun to look at, especially when we have the conditions that are ripe. Let me make this go.
Great, Keith. It's always good to go through this. You guys know the moon way more than a lot of people, so it's great to hear these names and see all these features pointed out.
Thanks,
I
Hank.
agree,
You know,
Hank. I need the repetition of it.
we're glad that you're here, Hank. It's good to see you. I miss you on Sunday. Holdrose, like I said, his Sunday show takes place during my Sunday nap. I usually have dinner and then that's my nap time, so it makes it hard for me.
It takes place during mine too. I often speak
Yeah, I know. Well, that's how Tuesdays used to be. That's why I used to sleep for that first half hour. But what were we talking about here? That's what I'm talking about. Hank brought up an excellent point. When I say on one of Paul's shows, I kind of go off script where everything that we do on Slooh is at a completely different level. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I just, was on YouTube today and Earth Sky, which used to be Earth and Sky, with Deborah Bird, Blockenbird, Earth and Sky. She took time off to just run the website. Well, somebody had a show on 15 minutes on something that we're going to talk about later today. And it just bad camera, the presentation style I didn't like. It didn't seem like they really knew what they were talking about. And the only reason we know what we're talking about is because we talk about it all the time. So I want to go back and look at why libration happens. Um, okay, let me get.
Yeah, my first show with you guys, you had the moon on and you started talking libration, and I said, "What's libration?"
We're going to talk
Well,
about it
in
I
again.
fact, I
like,
think that, that is actually a great question, Hank. Keith, define what is libration?
We're going to talk about it all over again. I know, I keep coming back to the same things a lot of times, but the moon is important, and this is one of those examples. You will be trained if you aren't already that when you see Mare Crisium towards the center, that you're going to start looking for these features. So the reason the libration happens is we have two examples here. We've got the mini moon. That's when the moon is further away. And we have the moon at perigee, which is when the moon is closer to us. So when the moon is closer to us, and I encourage you to do this at home, these are the kinds of things that when I wake up after that nap, which lasts until midnight sometimes, and it's 2 in the morning, the wheels start slowly going in motion, and I think about these things. So when the moon is closest to us, when it's the largest, it is moving around the Earth a little bit more quickly. And I've had this diagram for years now, and I've used it all the time. And it explains, at least it attempts to explain why we have eastern libration. The moon is closer to the Earth, and when it does, it's moving a little bit faster, so we see the eastern limb. Wrong. That is not an explanation. That doesn't tell me anything. If the moon is moving faster, why do we see the eastern limb? It's because I think that, remember, we see part of the moon because the moon is tidally locked with the Earth, meaning that it rotates on its axis at about the same speed that it orbits the Earth. And that's the operative thing here, about the same speed. So if it's moving a little bit faster, that means it's probably not rotating as fast on its axis. So the rotation hasn't caught up to us yet. So when the Earth is passing us, we're seeing that eastern limb because the rotation hasn't caught up with the speed that the moon is moving at.
It also has an axis wobble like the Earth. So both the Earth and the moon have their axis wobble, their seasonal wobble, which means you're going to have more libration in that respect too.
You do have that too. And don't forget, I got into a discussion with this on somebody's sun feed. Depending on where the moon is, whether it's rising, whether it's at meridian, or whether it's setting, the features are going to appear that they're inclining, leveling off, and then going down. And that's not the moon turning. That's the rotation of the Earth. That's hold us. You're on that sun feed with me where we got into that strange discussion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happens when the moon is moving more slowly? That means that the rotation is slightly ahead of the movement of the Earth or of the moon, and we're seeing that western limb. So
Yeah.
that's what we have. What happens on the flip side? What if as it's approaching full, the moon is moving slower? Well, then that means it's rotating, but we're seeing the western limb, but the moon isn't full yet. And that's where you're going to see Mare Crisium on the edge of the moon. So if the moon is further away as it approaches full moon, Crisium will be on the limb of the moon. And although technically we would be able to see the western side, the western limb of the moon isn't going fast enough for us to be able to, or it isn't at that phase where we're able to see it. On the flip side, at the western libration, if it's moving quicker, uh, we would see that eastern limb, but that's the waning side. So a lot of, complicated things. These are things that you have to kind of work out and, use your sun. I use this electric candle and I imagine these scenarios. But when we see Mare Crisium away from the limb, that's when we see libration and we can expect it kind of on the other side too. If we see Crisium on the limb, we may not uh, see those features. In fact, you're not going to see those features. You would see them on the western limb, but it hasn't completed its cycle of phases yet. And
So
that's
correct,
where we're going to take a break.
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but with Crisium is more to the eastern limb, are we going to see those western features like Oceania, Otala?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that right now. That was my prediction. And we were seeing Lacos Veris. We're going to go there next. I've got those loaded. If people are at home don't know where I'm talking about, Mare Crisium, that's this sea up here, the Mare. That's my indicator. So the reason we're seeing the features here is because
It's working its way in.
it's speeding up. It's closer to the Earth, which means when it gets on the other side, it should slow down and we should see the moon rock the other way. And that's when we have this. So this was from Holdrose, probably the same spot that you got some of your pictures from. This is from the Consolidated Lunar Atlas. These were moon shots that it came from the various Apollo missions. So on the western limb, we have Grimaldi and Riccioli and some other things here. This is Lacus of Tomi and Lacus Veris.
Kruger's
The name,
down below. Kruger's that
and
spot just below
we've
Grimaldi.
got this here. This is Burgess A. So these are my locators.
Mhm.
Grimaldi and Burgess A. And then maybe you'll see this, Lacus Ferris. Now, Mark shared a photo where you couldn't see this, but you could see Lacus Ferris, the darker one. And I stuck them together. I did my own stitch of these two images and I came up with this. So our focal point here, our guidepost is Grimaldi, just like Mare Crisium is on the eastern side. This is on the western side.
Yeah.
Grimaldi, Riccioli. Uh, I forget who that is, but that's Burgess say this
That's
raid
Kruger. Kruger's
Kruger.
that
That's
dark
right. That's
spot.
right. That's right. Then you have Lacus of Tumni, which is this kind of separated region, difficult to catch. You can get it on Slooh. I've done it in the past. Lacus Ferris, this very long, elongated, dark finger,
Exactly.
and Orientale is this
Just
dent
just on the edge.
on the rim.
Yeah,
Now the question becomes, Orientale means east. We're on the western limb. Why is it called Mare Orientale?
that's
That's that's because before 1960, moon images were reversed. They're assuming that lunar observers are using a refractor. They provide us with a mirror image. Some of the moon maps also took into account reflectors, and you'll get an inverted image, or they'll give you two versions of what the moon looks like from your
exactly.
telescope. But the IAU, the International Astronomical Union, decided that to accommodate astronauts, they had to flip it so that it appeared the way you would see the moon as if you were hovering over it. They didn't want astronauts to be thinking, okay, I'm going to land here, and then they weren't able to flip it around in their mind. You're under enough stress already without having to flip the moon. This created a big deal. A lot of people were enraged. You think the Pluto thing was big. Flipping the moon was a big issue. And this created all kinds of problems, but most of those people that were angry in 1960 are no longer with us. So the names have stuck. As the name stuck with this, Mare Orientale is on the western limb.
Not
And
only did they, not only did they flip the moon, but they flipped all the planets. They flipped everything in the solar system except one thing, the sun.
the sun, yeah, they did
And
that.
who knows why? There must have been some strong arguments, but yep.
You're right. The western limb of the sun is the part that is going to set. Yeah. So this is the region that we're looking at. You can see Aristarchus is up here. This is Copernicus and Kepler. Here's Grimaldi. and Enriquioli. That was Kruger. Here's Bergier, and we can see this split lake. That's Lacus of Tumni. This is Lacus Ceres, and this is Mare Orientale, this large impact crater filled with basaltic lava of the moon.
And Mark was saying it's one of or the biggest impact on the moon.
Yeah, he was. I didn't read the article that he gave the link to, but we have impact craters like this one on the far side. We have it like Tycho that we see.
Yeah,
This one,
I read the Atlas report on it, and it's 300 kilometers across.
okay,
It's quite a stretch.
yeah, and what happened here is, um, you're breaking through the crust of the moon, and you have the basaltic lava
Mhm.
bubbling up to the surface and then smoothing out, and you have the rim
Yeah, making it
that
dark.
that's left over from the impact. And sometimes, like Mare Crisium, you could tell came in at an oblique angle, like Aristarchus was probably an oblique hit, coming in at an angle and then burying itself in the surface of the moon. Proclus is another crater like that. These are just face on. I mean, look at them. They're just like smack dab in the middle. And this one happened to break through. So that is our Orientale region. Here's a close up. And these again, I took from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. It's a video. They have a whole bunch of videos, and you just take screenshots of the video, and that's what we have a look at. So, questions on that? It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed looking at it
Well,
at
the
this
thing I
type of
really
stuff.
like about Orientale is you can see where the crust is broken
Oh
That's
yeah,
what I was just,
from the
you mean
impact.
those what do you call those? The rips or the rills or on
Yeah.
the right side of Orientale, what are those called?
Well,
Lock,
they're rills, but rills are rather like trench lines that have formed along. But that heavy crusted area there, that's actually crevices from the
right,
buckling of the crust.
from the buckling.
yeah.
That's what it
That's
looks
that's
like.
the that's the rim of the
Oh,
crater, and yeah, rills are like
well, what are the
they
dark
look like a
patches?
riverbed.
What were the dark patches we keep talking about right now that we see these long rivers?
Yeah,
Uh,
so again, they call these lakes when they're on the moon. So
I
Lacus
see.
Septimi is this one, and this is Lacus
Blackness.
Ferris.
Okay.
So we could imagine, something this big hitting, the moon and breaking through the crust, bubbling up the basaltic lava. These are probably just stress points and fracture points where the basalt just bubbled up to in these spots. Also, you have that. Rills are a little different. Rills usually begin in some type of fissure or crack or a small impact crater. The lava bubbles up and then will trickle down like a river and come to like an endpoint. That's not really what happened here. It doesn't look like because they're not riverbeds. These are
Yeah,
actually
I
the lava bubbling up and cooling and staying there.
got it. Lacos.
Lacos, yeah. Lacos of Tumni, Lacos Viveris. So
It's quite an interesting piece.
yeah, whenever, and these are things to look for. Whenever you see your indicators, and you see Grimaldi away from the edge, you start looking for this. Orientale doesn't look anything like what we looked at over there. It's a dent. And I've even heard it described in journals
This,
as you look for the dent because you're probably not going to see the darkness of the basin against the
no,
blackness of the sun, but you are going to see this feature. And that's not a mistake from stitching.
yeah, and
That's
it's
actually
pretty
what it's
much
like.
on the border where the visible moon ceases and the dark side of the moon, the backside begins. So it's both the farthest object you can possibly see from Earth when the libration is right.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I actually went back. I posted an observation on this area a couple years ago, and I went back to get it, and I figured I'll use that.
Mhm.
And as I looked at the image, again, I was seeing what I wanted to see. I knew it was there. I kind of saw the dent. I really didn't see the sea at all. I got a lot of likes. A lot of people liked it. Wow, great, great find.
Yeah,
But when you looked at it, this is a little more noticeable, not much, but
yeah,
it's difficult to see.
yeah.
It's not like what we look like on the eastern limb. Those
Just
things you're going to
seeing,
see. This is
just seeing a
tough.
quarter of the edge of where it starts on the rim.
Yeah, this is tough. This is hard to find. It certainly doesn't look anything like that. So the other thing I wanted to look at, that was Gretchen's moon, was Thomas Harriot. Mark also posted some images that were drawn by him, images that predate Galileo. How do we know that? Because he dated his work, and they predate Galileo's work by several months.
Yeah.
And these were his first studies, coming up on, this was the very first ever image that we know of that was drawn of the moon, 1609. And this was, I said, about 5 or 6 months before Galileo made his observations of the moon. This is what I wanted to talk about. This was his moon map. This was Thomas Harriot's moon map, much more detailed than what Galileo put out. And why don't I take a break here and let's see if our panelists here can see some of the lunar features. Let's see how much of it he got right. The more I looked at this, the more I realized this is really detailed. And let's not forget, he's looking at the moon through a lens, a singlet refractor. That's why, remember when we go back to the 17th century singlet refractor things that I talk about all the time on the Antique Telescope Society? This guy is recreating these types of telescopes as a single lens, so it doesn't invert the image, doesn't reverse it. And it's about 1 inch to 1.25 inches in diameter. So when he's looking at the moon, this is a composite map. He's looking at only parts of the moon and putting it together. And this is what he came up with. So let's see what we can see here. He got a lot of stuff.
They,
The woman on the moon is really visible.
you can see Grimaldi's over there, number 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see Riccoli, but his friend Riccoli invented the system for naming the system, which we still use today. And he invented the system of naming the craters after his famous compatriots or other scientists of the day. And so that's why you see Grimoli and Rissoli and Havelis very close together. And
Yeah,
on that western limb.
I used for comparison, I looked at an image that Jean had shared because the moon was kind of blown out around the edge, and this is what the moon looks like through any type of lens at full moon. You don't get a lot of definition, but he got all the C's. Serenitatis, Tranquillitatis, Fecunditatis, Mare Crisium. He's got,
Considering the telescope and and his aperture, like he's done an amazing job.
yeah, he's got Plato. That would be Endymion. I followed the layout of his map, and this does follow the way the moon goes. Some other things here. I forget. I had these blocked out, but this bright spot would be Aristarchus. I think this was that was probably Kepler and Copernicus, or maybe it was Copernicus would be first. It was very detailed. This is that whole Jura Mountains, the Monte Sura, that's the Sinus Iridium, right? The Bay of Rainbows. That's
Crisium over there in the east, and the
yeah,
big
that's
spot.
18.
Yeah.
This is that whole Oceanus Procellarum. But a lot of these small craters are visible. You have to go back. It was difficult for me to do a side by side, but go back and look at Sean Hutchinson's full moon image in Lunar Chat and compare it with this, and you will see that he got that Thomas Harriot got pretty much everything was visible in a full moon, again, slightly overexposed. He pretty much saw the same thing. This also reminded me of a moon map that one of our Slooh members had drawn. I did get a copy of that. I didn't have permission to share it, so I didn't share it. But I thought it was interesting that somebody using the Slooh telescopes or a telescope at home was seeing pretty much all the key points that Harriet saw with an instrument of very, very inferior quality. Looking at, can you imagine? Looking at something that's probably, the size of a straw
Yeah.
and having to put these together and coming up with this.
Now
And
Harriet and Galileo and other our forefather compatriots like Messier and Herschel all had one advantage we don't have, and they had clearer, cleaner skies. So even with an inferior instrument, they could see a cleaner view of the moon than we're probably seeing today.
That's a good point.
Like our atmospheric condition has worsened considerable from their day.
that's one of the things that we think about when we look at these instruments. I follow this thread. It's a thread of distinction from the ATS, the Antique Telescope Society. The optics on these instruments were actually extremely good. Um, Kind of like mind-blowing good. The
Mhm.
problem is that they were very narrow, so they were great on things like double stars, not very good on the moon because, like I said, you're only seeing a small portion of it. Galileo had the same problem.
Yep.
But the issue of the atmosphere is interesting too. We think that, but there's also something else to think of, and that's that these observers were usually not off in the country. They are usually in major cities. Um, Messier was observing from the L'Hôtel Cluny, which was the abandoned, destroyed monastic establishment that became a hotel,
Yeah.
in Paris,
Yeah.
and they were burning wood. So the idea was when we factor in that,
Yeah.
and you've
That's
got a
true.
lot of smoke and stuff in the atmosphere, we kind of, some people say the sky was clearer if you went out in the country. Yeah, maybe. But in cities like where Galileo was and where, Messier was,
It might
did
have been a
the
little dingy, yeah, at
yeah,
time.
did that have an impact? Did the smoke have an impact? Because every chimney in Paris would have been burning it. And,
Yeah.
that's
In
that's
the
also
colder
something to
months
think of.
especially. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's food for thought because, obviously we can't go back to that time. Um, maybe
Can you post a
maybe
copy of this image, Keith, in the where Sean's is so we can look at it?
yeah,
Can you?
it's in Lunar Chat. You might have to
Okay.
scroll up a little bit.
Now,
Uh,
as you mentioned, he's stitching this together too. It must have took him a lot of observation hours to get this all put together to view and sketch each individual area.
yeah, and it's not just that. You're talking about someone with a handheld instrument,
Yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
Has anybody ever, tried to handheld hold anything?
Well, it's like
Even
working with a binocular, right?
binoculars are hard enough, are they not? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the thing. Galileo's first telescope, I think, had a magnification of 7, which is probably what he would have had. 7 by 35s. Uh, you know, I need to rest my arms on something. 10s, forget it. I
Oh,
mean, I have to use a pole. But 7 by 35, 7s are, they can get kind of shaky. So he's looking through this, straw and
yeah.
seeing only part of the moon, and he's got to be having shake going on here. Just incredible that he saw what he. I mean, basically, this is a good rough draft of the moon. All the major points are here that he would have been able to see.
Well, I have worked with a monocular before, and I've actually used a tall walking stick to lean it up against so you can steady things up in order to get a clean view of anything.
So
So,
I want to fast forward this, and then we'll let Jenny give key us in on what's going on with the sun. This was 1612. We take it 50 years to Robert Hooke's observation of 1664. This is Hipparchus crater that he drew in just 50 years,
wow.
and this is a lunar um, shot probably from the Apollo missions. Comparing the two,
He's got it really close, hasn't he?
I mean, this is just kind of mind-blowing. Robert Hooke was a competitor, was a rival of Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton basically had him canceled. We know a lot of
Mhm.
Robert Hooke's works were destroyed.
Yeah.
He wrote a landmark work uh, on microscopic observations. So that's really what he's known for. I think it was called micrographia. But he did some work with astronomy too, and that's another common theme. People that were into optics did telescopes and they also did microscopes, and Robert Hooke is one of them. He also did astronomical calculations, and that was what angered Isaac Newton. But I mean, this is pretty incredible to even think of the idea. We talk about look for the light source. He's got everything illumined. He's got the shadows in the right spot. That's difficult to get. And then forget about the craters and everything else. But, not not unusual for him. Like I said, he was observing fleas and cells and this kind of stuff with microscopes, some of the first drawings that we have of that. That is where I am going to take a break and we'll turn it over to Jenny in a minute. Any questions on this? I just thought this was really interesting. When I saw Harriet's map, it got me thinking about a whole bunch of things and some of the stuff I had to dig up. And of course, libration, always fun to talk about.
You can share Grace's moon map. She said it was okay.
Oh, I don't have that loaded. You can share it if you want to.
Okay, let's see.
Now, did Grace say, did she take this from her home telescope or was this from a Slumage that she drew?
She didn't give me any detail when I asked for the share. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if it says anything. No, she just says the moon.
The
All right,
moon.
the
I know
moon.
wasn't there a
Eight-
program a while back on Slooh, I think a couple of years back, where people were sketching the moon?
This was after this. She
Oh,
did
okay.
this one last year, but I remember that, Sonali. It was right after they started Discord,
Yeah.
and they did they did a couple art things.
Oh,
And remember that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Those were not lunar observations. They did. You're right.
Something else.
Sonali's
Okay.
right. I remember this. It was like cartoons. I think they drew like the moon, and there was another party where they did Jupy. It was like Jupiter with a face, and it was weird stuff. It was not lunar observation, lunar drawings.
Well, no,
This,
what we did
No, there
was
was
you looked at a picture, had a picture of the moon, and then you
traced
laid
it or
paper over it. So you were tracing it.
yeah, I think there were a couple of them. Anyway,
Yeah, but no,
lunar
this was something, this
after.
was different. Yeah.
lunar drawing is a big thing. Okay, I mean, if you go onto Cloudy Nights or Astromart or any of these sites, there are people that just specialize in this. And there are people with, art degrees and art backgrounds, and some of the drawings they put out are amazing. So what I liked about Grace's thing was this, when I saw Harriet's map, it reminded me of Grace's map. And I looked at her map and compared it with his map just to get an idea of what good observers can do, regardless of what kind of equipment they have. And she came out with pretty much the same features that he did. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of it took kind of the same shape. So when you look at the Jura Mountains area, and okay, it looks like something's a little, all right, out of place here. But Tycho, she's got circled. She's got that looks like Copernicus and Kepler, and something here. She's got Plato here, and Endymion is up there. Again, you see a lot of the same stuff. And my whole thing was just that, it doesn't even really matter the kind of equipment that people have. It's good observational skills are going to pick out and extract the same type of information that's there. We imagine Harriet and even Galileo with their little, drinking straw telescopes, and 50 years later with Robert Hooke's small telescope, and then somebody with modern equipment observing pretty much the same stuff. So I just thought that was
Yeah,
interesting.
I liked it. I like it. It's a little inaccurate, a little very inaccurate.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, this is great. I love the color coding of everything. I thought it was just really great work. It's very interesting to look at. Very cool. Cool stuff. Okay. So Jenny, do you want to give us an update on what's happening with the sun? There's been some excitement in the air.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I didn't do any slides because I'm not feeling well and didn't want to have to spend time scrolling
Oh,
through everything. But
Not a problem.
biggest updates are want to direct everybody to take a look and do a search on Slooh observations because there's an uptick in students that are posting images on the sun. Some of them are rather hilarious descriptions of what they're seeing.
I love
And,
it.
but a number of them are a fair amount of detail that they've thought through what it is that they are observing. So you can do the search in Slooh where you do a search on all observations, and it gives you the little area where you can type in short description. So if you type in sun, I don't know if you can pull something up on and show it on the screen, Gretchen, from Slooh.
Yeah, let's look here.
But there were quite a few this past week from the Canary 5 solar telescope imagery.
What this is. There's another Slooh art from Brett S. Okay, I'm just trying to find out where. All right.
While you're doing that, just a reminder for those of you that haven't been following the sun, our two fabulous, huge sunspot groups from 2 weeks ago have managed to migrate themselves all the way around the sun from the far side.
Yeah. Mark
And
mentioned something
they got their new numbers, and one's just starting to become more visible. So at least one of them has given us an X flare since it reached the Earth-facing side of the sun. So it's pretty exciting times, but we're seeing some great prominences along the east and west limb of the sun as well. You'll see those in solar chat if you take a quick trip through that later on.
Yeah, 3664, that was that big grouping
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
in
the
that
one that's
4 o'clock
moving in
position.
now and has a new number. I
That
can't
was
recall it off the top of my head.
that was blowing out material into space on the other side, so it hadn't finished after it left us. And that's one of the just blew out another solar flare right
it
on the limb. I just watched that today. So it's coming back for more of the same. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's 3691. Is that the same one? There were two
That was
together.
the one that was
3664.
that it was what it currently is, but was
6-4.
3664. No, that was
That was
Well, no, the one that's
63,
back is
63.
sunspot.
The one that's still on the limb is 64. Was 64.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
I know when they're saying, I mean, we want to wait till like it's like Earth facing, see what happens, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't hammer home in the part 3 of that little mini sun series we did was that we were exposed to a Carrington level event and we were fine. And we had it. And if you watch some of the naysayers and doomsday people, there was a lot of some were saying, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. Others were saying, no, this is going to be a big deal. We survived, but that wasn't dumb luck. That was because scientists have been telling us for 30 years or more that we have to prepare for these types of events when they do come, because they are going to come. And it just shows that, the people that run the infrastructure have made the proper adjustments, at least for that level. Now, what happens with something more powerful, we don't know, but we weathered the storm that time. So I think that was, one of the big takeaways, and I think that was exciting. What happens the next time around, we don't know, but I thought it was just, yeah, here it is here. Maybe that's on it. Yeah, I guess that is it on the bottom there.
Okay, these are some of the ones from today and in the past couple days.
Let's see what we got.
And you'll notice that where the search line is, where she's typed in sun and then all. But it goes in spurts when a lot of the student stuff. There was a really nice one that Sonali put up. I love the eyes on you because I was thinking the same thing, that there were two eyeballs peering at me from the bright page.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's kind of scary when the sun's looking back at you.
Right?
Well, today, one of the images that I was observing, but I didn't get around to posting an observation, looked like a little fox's nose on the incoming active region. And the one big filament looks like a smile that people have been commenting on, about
I love
looking
that.
like a face. I do like some of the terminology that people are using, like the sun. That's an older image that we had the duck image from back last year that they had
Right.
resurrected and made some comments about. That was the one that I can't remember who did it, but it was referred to as the mallard.
I love it. Yeah, the search isn't working super great, but it does, I guess the sun is in their description, so.
Yeah, anywhere the sun is, it pops it up. But you can see
But
just
good
the
stuff.
variety.
Yeah, we
Good
had some
stuff
really good stuff.
and nice descriptions so that it picks up and captures your interest when you're reading through them really quick.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's definitely exciting. You know, you guys are up in the morning. I've seen Sonali on there, and Jenny, and of course, Dark Sky Mark. Sean sometimes shows up, Hank sometimes there, and Holdrose, check it out. It's fun to be there to see what's happening with the solar scope, especially these days, because there's a lot of exciting things that are happening.
A
So
lot of historical stuff happening that people will
yeah,
be reading about far
exactly.
beyond our lifetime.
Yeah. So great stuff. I love it. Well, cool. Well, thank you for the report and feel better. Keith, back to Hugh.
Okay, so two closing segments. Let's pull up the opening coronagraph from that we opened up episode 3 with. I want to look at that.
Okay. Hold on.
So this was an image that just as that 3664
Oh, yeah.
was moving across the face of the sun, it blew out this enormous
Just
coronal
as-
mass ejection,
Yeah.
which was not in our direction. For it to have an effect, it pretty much has to be directed at us. I think of these sunspot groupings in these active regions like a machine gun turret, like on a tank.
Yeah.
And as the sun rotates, it's that turret turning at you, and you're the target. The Earth is the target. And here, this was headed off to something on the side. So something else was the target. And we have an outtake from that episode that we didn't get a chance to talk about. We couldn't talk about everything. Gretchen, please pull up my Mars image. This was the target
Oh, your Mars
of
image.
of this CME. This is where that CME was headed.
Let's see. I need to figure out where your Mars picture went. Because
And
we pulled it out
what are
of
you
Oh.
referring to, Keith? What show or what?
Oh, tell Hank about the Solar Series stuff.
While you're
Oh.
looking for the image, how about if I go to Slooh and all right, let me do this.
They're pretty cool. There are 3 episodes that Keith has talked about on the sun, and they're about 30 minutes each and really very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well
thank
done.
you for the kind words. This was actually not my idea. I was recruited for these, but I think they turned out well. So this is how you find them. You go to the Slooh webpage, go to community, and go to Star Parties. They're listed as student classes because that was the target audience, although we had some grown-ups watch them too. Solar features, solar activity, and solar storms. These were supposed to be 15-minute shows. The first two were like 20, 25 minutes, and this one was half an hour. There was so much to talk about. It was very difficult. And we have meetings about this, what we're going to talk about, and there was just no way we could, initially this was supposed to be one show, and I said, if we're going to do it right, we have to do 3 shows. And then it was very hard, as Gretchen will tell you, to keep these at 15 minutes. From now on, maybe we were going to shoot for that, but Paul didn't have a problem with it. He said, as long as the flow is good, they can be half an hour, and that's what we did.
I think the flow is good, and for the amount of material that you had to cover, it would be really hard in 15 minutes.
Yeah, we
Probably have 6 shows instead of 3.
Well, every time we had a meeting about one show, it's like this could easily be 2 shows for each show. And, we wanted to keep it. It was for a lot of the school kids, they're on summer break now. It was for them to have an opportunity to learn about the sun, take some sun quests, and to, to help them out. That was the target audience. But if anybody watched them and you enjoy them, I'm glad you did. There
Hmm.
are more shows in the works. We have an asteroid series coming up, culminating in probably two parts, ending in Asteroid Day. Paul will be going to Luxembourg for Asteroid Day. I think that will be for
Oh.
June 23rd. Or is it the 27th, Gretchen?
27th. Well, the
27th.
27th is when there is an asteroid that is near Earth. It's a PHA, which stands for potentially hazardous asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me you can't find, I think maybe if I go
No,
back, just hang on.
I did find the Mars. Which one did you want? Do you want the
The Mars picture
NASA
first.
one
Yeah,
or
the Mars picture first. It was a
the
Slooh picture.
Slooh? The
Yeah.
Slooh picture. Okay, yeah, I got you. I found that one.
Ah,
All right, so this was a Slooh image. I actually had to crop this a little bit. I thought it was just a nice Mars picture. So this is where the CME is headed. And Mars, this beautiful red planet, it still just kind of looks like a star. It's still far away from us. We're not at opposition with it yet. And in fact, opposition I don't think will be until January 2025. Remember those bigger planets that are further out, we enter into opposition with them pretty much every year. But Mars, because it's close to us, is moving about half as fast as we are. So it takes us twice as long to catch up to it. As Mars is moving, we're moving, and we're moving, and Mars is moving. So it takes about, I think,
Every 2 years.
yeah, 2 years and 2 months, I think, for us to catch up with it. Mars does not have a magnetic field like the Earth does.
no.
So we don't get that issue with, seeing me on Mars. Not that it really matters, but it does have an atmosphere, although it's very thin. And this is what's going to happen to Mars when that CME reaches it, which it probably did already, moving at the rate that it does. Gretchen, let's take a look at our special effect. This was a NASA image.
Hold on, let me find it. Ah, la la la.
They were in order.
Well, no, they got moved because they were
Yeah, I know
pulled
you took
from
them
the
out.
show.
All right.
Yeah.
You're stealing my thunder. The CME, when it reaches Mars, something is going to happen, and we have evidence of it. We have aurora on Mars. This is observed only in the last few years. You can see the date, 2021.
Oh.
So when the CME reaches Mars, it's not magnetic field stuff, and it's not even really electron stuff, which is what really happens with aurora. You have the electrons interacting with the Earth's magnetic field. Here you have more proton activity, but it will interact with the atmosphere. And we have these aurora effects on Mars.
I think this, when I read this, I'm like, and I wish that we had had time to put it in the show, and I know that we didn't, but I find it fascinating. I was like, you guys, there's auroras on Mars. Martian aurora. Come on. It's fascinating.
Well,
Yeah.
Keith, there's another topic for your show, auroras on different planets in the solar system.
See,
Exactly.
there you go. I love it.
I
pretty
try
cool.
not to I tried not to take this personally, but this was, this received a comment in the margin notes. We're going to cut this. And I was like, oh, that's where the that's where the
brought it
CME
to
is
the
going.
table, but then you found this one, which was, fantastic. But yeah. But yeah, I
So,
like that, Sonali. I love this. Let's talk other planets and aurora, right?
They do.
so
They do.
that was,
Yeah, auroras have been seen in Jupiter,
Yeah.
Saturn.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
true. You're right, Mel.
anywhere
Right?
you have
So
a magnetic
fun.
field.
I mean,
So,
that's amazing given how far out they are and
Yeah.
how much, effect the solar wind has on those planets and their atmospheres.
Yeah. Once that solar wind kicks out, it keeps on going until it collects up in the heliosphere.
Well, right. I mean, the thing is when, I was reading about it and I was like, well, of course, duh, right? It's so obvious, but I never
And then
I
it
never
does
thought
something
about it.
strange out there too. It starts to pocket up and form bubbles
Yeah.
of shielding, which actually helps shield us from more cosmic radiation from the cosmic medium.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the big thing with this was, and I don't think I've hammered this home either, but you know, when you have a CME, when you have this explosion of material, you know, why does it take anywhere from, you know, 15 hours to 3 days to reach the Earth? It's because it depends on how fast you know, is being expelled from the sun. There's no resistance in space, so it's going to travel at that speed once it reaches its exit velocity. Once it's cast out from the sun and is away from the sun, it's going to travel at that speed in whatever direction it goes to. And the cool thing about this is CMEs we're finding now don't just happen as a one-off thing where it's a CME and then it's done. A lot of times they come in pairs or they'll come as threes. So what the first one will do, whatever space, dust, and debris may inhibit its speed, will get wiped out of the way by the first one, kind of like a person that's you know, cutting brush, so
Yeah.
that everything behind it can travel that much more quickly.
Yeah.
So when we see that first one, we know that it's you know, sort of clearing the path of debris, so that whatever follows after it from that same active region is going to be traveling much, much faster. So that becomes a concern too in predicting of space weather of, you know, is there a second one? Is there a third one from this same general region? And even if it was 2 weeks ago, if we get more stuff coming from that region, we have to assume that it's going to be traveling much more quickly because that path has already been cleared for it. So,
It's just going to be terrible when Mr. Sun actually invents rapid fire.
yeah, and
Pew, 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 pew.
and we talked about the Gleisberg cycle. You know, we're actually in a mild couple of solar cycles as part of that much larger 80 to 100 year cycle. So we have more to expect. I think that's enough of the complicated stuff for today. Thank you, Gretchen, for sharing the Martian aurora. We have to end
I'm so
on
happy that it got to be shared. The story needs to be told.
all the best material is left on the cutting room floor
I
as well.
know, I know. Then
But
it remains for us to share at the Tuesday show. So
well, hey,
good
uh,
thing.
there's no better place to end than we've got to look at our Hall of Fame, Wall of Shame object for
Oh,
this week or our 2 weeks.
yeah.
This is a good one. So this comes to us from if you can notice, read the um, copy here. This is not a machine gun, okay? Although we do have a member of the Navy here. This is
It
for
does look
sale.
like a howitzer.
Lot 16 custom
Right?
manufactured 10-inch F10 refracting telescope for
Wow.
the U.S. Naval Aerospace Recovery Facility. So what this was designed to do was when they launch ejector seats in jets, these track the ejector seat and the parachutes coming down. You could actually see the little mission patch. This is not a joke. That's what they were designed for.
Wow.
The Air Force remained part of a test organization for the next 27 years. In 1959, an ejection seat designed for pilot escapes, etc. And this was used to track those. Does the telescope know that's what it was designed for? Of course not. You can use it on anything. And these came up as part of a military auction. You can see you've got two of them side by side. Looks an awful lot like some type of weapon. It isn't. It's even got a movie camera on the back. You can see where the rolls of film go. If you ever watch old Hollywood, that's how you film. So they were
Reel
they
to
were
reel.
filming. Yeah, exactly. So that's what they came for sale, or how they were presented at auction. The guy who lists the next listing acquired them both, but not at the same time. This is the state that it's in now, at least one of them. Uh, he obviously was turned on by the idea that it looked like a weapon, and he perforated the holes.
Well, yeah,
And
he's got it air cooled now.
uh, you know, he has this. This was obviously to save weight on the tube. I would imagine this is
Yeah.
enormous. This is what it looked like in its earlier days, in its youth. This is what it looks like now. He has an eyepiece a focuser on the end. I'm sure you could replace that with a firing mechanism if you wanted, so it could go back to something else that it looked like. Here's another picture. If you're ever online and you hear the term overmounted, or I'm sorry, undermounted, this is what we're talking about. There's no way that mount can carry something that big or that much weight. You
He's
need,
trying to reduce the weight with the holes. I wonder how much weight
Yeah,
he
maybe.
took off it.
call me crazy, but he needs a bigger mount for this. I mean, the other one was attached like a ship. That was the mount. That was a mount for it
The mount was the
originally.
boat, right? Yeah.
Now you can see where I'm going with this. If you dare,
And
if your wife comes home and she sees this in your garage, it's over. I mean, I'm sorry. Just look at this. Oh my gosh. Here's another good picture. I liked this one. So much going on here. He's got a table, which I think the wind would just blow over, but even still, you may as well just put your laptop on the ground. I mean, why bother? I mean, it's not like he can find room here. So if you're going to image, I'll just sit on this stool and I guess bend over on the ground. The tail rad, the tube is so wide, I don't think it would fit into that V groove. So he just used like a bungee cord, and
Yeah.
I guess that works. He's using a nice CWO camera here, and he's got the focuser. All right.
It's a nice little camera.
Yeah, he's got, well, that's probably a planetary camera with an F10.
Yeah.
He's not going to see a whole lot of sky. Boy, oh boy. Bungee cord for the tail rad. He did show us the tube is baffled, so he took the baffling out and he took the
Oh.
focuser off. So we talked about baffling in the past. That's to direct the light cone. So the light comes in, as much light in the beginning, and then it gets narrower and more narrow as it comes down to the focuser. That's just to help the light so you don't have a lot of stray light. Most good telescopes have baffling, and as this one does. Not a problem with the holes. Remember, we looked at that telescope that was pretty much just baffling. It had a lens and baffling. It had the focuser at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the star test. So uh, the guy wanted to share this with us. Obviously, we have something going on here that shouldn't be like that. And in his ad, I don't know if I have the ad in here somewhere. He does mention that there was some issues with the lens. This is the issue with the lens.
Okay. That's a problem.
Yeah, that was shell shock, right?
So in the spirit of full disclosure, he did want you to know this. We call chips on telescope lenses clam chips. Can you see why they're called that now? It does look like a clam, and in
It
fact,
looks like a clamshell.
it's bigger than most clams. So he mentions in the write-up that the portion that isn't damaged is still usable.
So is that what they mean by clamming up?
This
Yeah.
is a clam chip. So he does mention in the ad. I'll have to go back to the ad. That the good part of the lens is usable. So I guess if you're looking at something, you just kind of move away from that. I don't know if that bothers anybody here. It would bother me, but some
Bothers
people, I
me.
guess it doesn't. Here's the ad. Here's the
What?
write-up.
He's selling it for
He's
$1,000.
selling it for $1,000. Now, here's the thing about this.
Cash only.
Where is it? Selling because I have two of these. So he bought them both. How do I know that? Because I know the guy. This was for sale before, and this guy, he actually bought it. And the other one he found someplace else.
Huh.
And he's got them both. This is the one that's damaged. He's selling it for $1,000. This
Isn't
can
that
be yours for
something?
$1,000. Hey, he might take less. Call me crazy, but I would guess that maybe he
Okay,
won't.
so tell me this though. What about like that mount that he has it on? What's that worth?
This mount, it doesn't come with this mount. I think is he
Oh,
selling
no.
this extra if you want it?
Oh, that's extra.
That's extra.
I have
my
a large
God.
cave mount available that might be able to carry it, and that looks more comfortable to me than the other one.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's a beefier mount for sure, but yeah, there goes the budget, Gretchen. We can't get the mount in the scope.
Darn it all.
Well,
All
and
right. Well, scratch it off our list.
hey,
Let's move on.
this works fine according to him.
Does it? Okay.
Okay.
That's it. So
Bye, Hank.
you guys decide. Hall of Fame, Wall of Shame. That's kind of your judgment call. I know where I put it. but
I know where I'd put it.
I
I
think-
think we gotta invent a whole new hall for that one.
you don't see one of these every day. That's all I can say. The sad thing about this is, like I said, this had come up for sale before by the original owner. And I have that picture shared too, but I won't share that. Did Hank leave us? Oh,
He
Hank.
just left. He just took off. So, but
Yeah,
it-
okay.
it's like top of the hour. So,
Yeah.
Great show, great stuff.
Excellent.
And
Yes, I learned a lot.
yeah, I think that was a good thing to end on.
Very good.
$1,000. I don't understand.
It's so
Dang.
bad. You just have to kind of, you have to have a soft spot in your heart for that. It's just so bad. And that the size of that chip, I can't even believe he has the nerve to sell something like that.
Well,
Well,
there's like this like nice like stripes.
I mean,
Well, the stripes, that's how you do a star test. The straighter the stripes are, the better it is. And it shows you the field curvature. So
There you go.
I can bring that up real quick since we're going to leave.
What?
It does show some edge to edge distortion. That's what we would call that. So if you notice, the lines aren't exactly parallel. They're moving away a little bit from the center line, but
Yeah.
it's still not bad. The big thing here is that clamp.
But
Yeah,
well,
the
it's gotta
clam.
be worth more money with the clam, right? Because that gives it character.
Character. I know. That is
Call
why
that the clam chop howitzer.
you can't.
Well, there might be some people, you know, who like to work on telescopes that might still find this a good buy if you have all the material.
Yeah.
I think-
Refurbishing.
I think it's worth just to have a telescope that has been featured on Hall of Fame Wall of Shame here on Slooh. To me,
See,
is
and
that's
Yeah.
worth $1,000 right
that
there.
is
Just to
totally
say, just to
Exactly.
say, did you watch the episode where they had that? And say, not only did I watch it, I bought it. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I owed it. It
famous. But you know, you're right. You're absolutely right. And you know, maybe you could even like you could sign something and send it off to them. They
That-
can get it. We'll send them a t-shirt when we get our t-shirts.
I
PJ&A
survived. I
t-shirts.
survived not almost buying the howitzer.
All right, well, we're
Sounds
gonna
good to
end on
Slooh.
that, but we will hop on over for a bit on Discord. And thank you, Keith. Great stuff as per usual. And
Good.
thanks everybody for coming.
2
And
thumbs up.
great to see you. So
Thanks
Have-
for coming, everyone. See you over on
Bye.
Discord.
See you next week.
Take care.